Hey there guys, I am SonicGhost and welcome back to some more Let's Play Splatoon 2 multiplayer. Last time we took a look at everything else we want to go ahead and go over before we jump into a game of Splatoon 2's multiplayer modes here. There was a lot of extra stuff we wanted to talk about, weapons, gear, all the different modes, but in today's video specifically, we're going to finally jump into our first game type here in Splatoon 2, Turf War. Now, before jumping into a game, I want to go ahead and mention that this is the loadout that we're going to be using starting off here. We're going to be using a arrow spray here specifically. We are using the arrow spray PG, which was a version of the arrow spray that was added later into Splatoon 2's lifespan. This was not here when the game first launched in 2017. I'm also going to be using very specific gear that's trying to optimize more on ink usage and also mobility to begin with to get the most out of the arrow spray. It doesn't really matter what kind of weapon combination and gear combination you use going into Turf War, as you can kind of use whatever you really feel comfortable with, but we're going to be starting out with this loadout here specifically. So now with that said, let's just go ahead and jump into a game of Turf War. So weapon layouts, like I said earlier, it doesn't really matter what you use for Turf War, but specifically, a lot of good weapons I can recommend a beginner to try here. A lot of fast-paced guns, like the arrow sprays, the end zaps, splat dualies, splatter shots, or splatter shot juniors. All those are good starting weapons to get a feel of how Splatoon 2 works, as they do great jobs at a lot of coverage in the game. So that's one thing I can recommend. Turf War specifically, you want to focus on coverage, because the name of the game here is to cover the most ground. You ink the most turf to win. Whoever has the most ink on the ground at the end of the 3-minute mark is determined the winner. So let's just go ahead and just cover this ground as much as we can. So right away here, we can already see we got 2 arrow sprays on our team. They got 2 chargers, so we got some long range, we got some short range going on here. One of my teammates is already activating their special, which is the Booyah Bomb, so that's a good start. I'm going to go ahead and just throw out a bomb myself, which will push me up to the special. And let's just go ahead and use it. Come on, guys. Booyah, and let's go. Waiting there to see if someone would get closer to it, and that was a good call, as I did hit someone with the Booyah Bomb. Those things are huge. Booyah Bombs are really good for coverage, but they're also really hard to avoid if you're dead center in the target, so it's really good just to take out a bunch of people at once if they're grouped together. Here my teammates asking for more booyahs. Whenever that happens, you just mash down on the D-pad and just send them your energy. I like to think of the Booyah Bomb kind of like the Spirit Bomb from like Dragon Ball, because it's in kind of the same nature. I was about ready to activate the Booyah Bomb there, but I didn't have enough time. The Booyah Bomb has a special ability for the person using it, where you do have a little bit of armor to protect you. So you can't just die immediately when you use the ability, which is nice. But sometimes you don't have enough time to actually activate the ability, and that's GG. So let's just be careful here. Ink up as much turf as we can, because we want to have a pretty good lead here, just to give ourselves a little bit of protection. Fortunately, I got outranged there. The Splash Shot Pro is a pretty good ranged weapon, and it does have a lot of power packing behind that long range, so not a good combo for me. Arrow sprays are really good for coverage, but in my opinion, they're not great for damage output. Damage output in the arrow spray, it really just kind of depends, honestly, on your situation, because they're really good up close and they can do a lot of damage, but if you're trying to use them far away, that's a whole different story. Burst bombs, on the other hand, are a really good thing to have for something like this, because I can just throw out 3 burst bombs on a full charge of ink, and if I hit people with multiple burst bombs, that will kill them after a while. One burst bomb will not kill an opposing member, but if you throw like 2 or 3 burst bombs, depending on how much damage that guy already took when you're throwing the burst bomb, then it will actually kill. Alright, so let's go ahead and charge out the Booyah Bomb, and I'm just going to go ahead and throw it here, and it got caught on the tree. Okay, well, that was a really bad spot to activate that. Let's be more careful next time we have the Booyah Bomb. We got an Ink Storm going down, which is a really good ability to have for Turf War, as that special can cover a lot of ground. It does take a little bit, but it is really good on coverage, so I feel like that makes up for that long amount of time it has to go ahead and cover things. Alright, we're at that last 10-second mark. We want to go ahead and push as much as we can here. Just get as much ground covered. And that will be game. So they were in danger there at the very end, which means we should definitely have this. And would you look at that? 55 to 29%. We definitely did good that game. So the indication on the top there is a really good way to tell you how good or bad you're doing in a game. The size of your squids / octolings on the top bar tells you who's ahead and who's behind. And if you hit danger, that means you're losing, so you definitely want to get out of danger. Now let's go ahead and change our gear here. This is something you can actually do in between games, and this will allow you to just mess around with a whole bunch of different stuff here. So I think now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to rock the custom dually squelchers because, as you notice here, it has a badge next to it. So I kind of want to show off what this really means. So I'm good with this gear. Let's go ahead and continue. As you see there, my meter for the gun, it went from dry at 0 to raw at 8 points. Now, on paper, this really doesn't sound like much because it's just a weird arbitrary level system that it doesn't affect you directly, but it does have a benefit. That meter there actually can give you more points based on how well you're doing with your weapon. The higher the weapon score, the more experience you can get as a bonus at the end of your game. It won't always give you a bonus, but there are times when you level up the gun high enough, it will give you an experience bonus at the end of your match. So you definitely want to push up that experience as much as possible with your weapons, as you want as much experience as you can out of this game. Especially early on when you don't have other modes unlocked, you want as much experience as you can to unlock those modes very fast. I'm going to be careful here to not get noticed. I didn't even know there was a sniper over there. This bladder scope is going to be a problem. I kind of feel it already. So we'll have to watch him. The guy's really good with just quick sniping. Here we're going to go ahead and climb up this wall again, but let's try again not to be noticed. Just throw out a bomb there and just immediately swim away. It's really good just to stay in your ink if you feel like you're going to be noticed and just kind of slowly push around the control stick, because if you're moving at full force, then you will see ink being moved around. But if you're moving very slow in the ink by just barely tapping on the stick, you won't actually show your trail at all, which is actually a great way of hiding yourself and sneaking up on your opponents. You have an ability called stealth swimming for this, but I feel like the ability, it has a very big trade-off of you move very slow in your ink. So while that may be a good ability to use if you combine it with a bunch of swim speed-ups, I feel like just swimming around very slowly gives the same effect. Hence why I don't really use that ability all that much on my gear, because it's just not as useful in my opinion. But in the right game mode it may be useful. I just don't really think it's as great with Turf War. So we're doing pretty good now if they're in danger. In my opinion, though, the last 30 seconds is when the real game begins in Turf War, because that's where you really need to determine who has the most ink by the end of the game, and that is the scariest part of a match. This Dynamo Roller is out for blood. I gotta stay careful here. We can take him out now. There you go. Now we're safe. The one thing I like about the dually squelchers is that they have long range and they're really powerful. So about 2 to 3 shots normally can kill an opponent with the dually squelchers, which is really good. Here, I'm not going to jump to anyone as I see this big patch of ink in our base I can go ahead and cover. So I might as well do that because we want as much of our base covered as possible too. Don't want to cover every single last thing because the only thing that matters in Turf War in terms of points is covering the floor. If you shoot the walls, that does not count for points. That's just something you want to do for traveling purposes. But you can't ink the walls and expect to get points from that, as that just won't matter. Being down to the wire here on time, I'm going to jump to my teammate and be very careful. One nice thing about the dualies is that you can go ahead and do your little dodge move as soon as you land on the ground, which will definitely help you in protection. We're just going to go ahead and cover this ground as much as possible here. Just be very careful not to die at the last second. And there you go. We're good. I do believe that was close to the end, but we should still have the victory. Would you look at that? By 3%, but we definitely got it. I was a little worried there at the end when they showed our map, and there was a whole bunch of our base not even covered. I don't know what was going on there. My teammate just kind of ignored it, but Luckily, that did not cost us the game. Alright, so let's go ahead and change our weapons around once again here. And this time around, I think we're gonna not use dualies again. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and use, let's say, probably the N-Zap. This would be a good idea. Because I really do like the N-Zap family of weapons in this game. They are really good. But I'm gonna actually change up my shirt a little bit for this. I'm gonna actually change it to this here, because this jacket, it has 2 special savers, and I definitely want to try this out. So let's go ahead and use this. So one nice thing about Turf War is that it doesn't matter if you're playing by yourself or not. You can actually have friends jump in the middle of your matches, and they can play alongside with you. For the sake of this video and how disjointed that kind of system works, we're going solo for this, but if there's another friend of mine online, they see me play Splatoon 2, they can easily jump into my lobby by just going to the friends menu, seeing I'm joinable, and then they would join in. The only downside to this, though, is that if you're in the middle of a game, you are queued up for the next game, and whenever there's an open slot in the lobby, so you could be waiting there a while. It just depends on when you want to join up and what's happening in the game. So it's a good thing to have. It's a returning thing from Splatoon 1, but the only issue I do have with it is that long waiting period, because it's not the easiest thing to do. And you can't just have a full group of people get ready to start Turf War and then you're all in the same lobby at the same time. You have to have at least one person start a game of Turf War, and then someone else can join up with you. But they don't join until the next game, so it's a little bit of a weird system. Not the most preferred thing, but it does work. I was hoping I could have got away from that Stingray. I didn't have enough time, sadly, but we were close. If he didn't fire again directly, I could have actually survived that whole interaction there with the Stingray guy. So this time we're going to make sure we actually ink this side over here of our base, because last time that was a little sketchy. We almost lost because this area wasn't covered at all. Even just a handful of areas not covered in your ink, that could cost you the game if you're like a 0.1 difference at the end. So I like inking every single last bit of floor I can, just for an extra precaution in case the games are that close. You don't want to go out of your way of doing that all the time, but there are times you definitely want to do that. Also, that was a really terrible place to activate my special. I did not see that guy until last second, so not the best interaction there for me. So let's just go ahead and try this one more time. If I get more ink up, that'll help. This is why I wanted to have 2 special savers on my gear set, because I feel like with ink armor, I really like having more special savers, because when you die activating your special, your meter doesn't fill back up the next time you respawn. And I feel like with how quick that can happen when you're trying to use ink armor, that becomes a problematic thing. So I definitely like having a special saver there, just to at least help me get back to full a little bit quicker, as that is very important to me. We're just about ready to use our special here, so I can just fill me up a little bit more. Throw out a suction bomb here. Now let's go ahead and activate it, and I can throw another suction bomb right away as my ink goes back to full when I use a special. We're doing pretty good here if they're in danger. Just like I said earlier on, though, it doesn't really matter until the last 30-second mark, in my opinion, in Turf War. That's when the real game begins, so we want to keep this lead. Looking at our map here, we're pushing them back to the base, and that's really good. So if we can keep this up, then we'll probably just win this game, no problem. I got that sniper immediately. I recognize your name there, buddy. You're not coming down here and sniping. Just a little bit more here. If I can fill up my ink, I can get a last-second bomb out. And there you go. That's a lot of extra ink. Yeah, that's almost a blue map. We did pretty good. Wow, that's a huge point difference. That's like, what, a 30% gap? That's huge. I wonder if they had disconnect. No, they didn't have a disconnect. That can happen. If someone's internet isn't the best, they could just DC and just poof out of existence. And if that happens, the game does not compensate for this. You still have to play, but they don't really penalize you in other modes if that happens. In Turf War, it doesn't really matter. In ranked battles, you just don't really gain or lose experience at that point for that specific ranking. Alright, so we're going to do one more match here, and I think for this match, let's just go ahead and go with the Kenza splatter shot here, because I want to use those Tenna missiles. I feel like Tenna missiles are a great thing to have. but I do want to change out my equip set here because I don't have much time. We're probably just going to grab something quick. I'm going to just say, let's go with the band tee here. Why not? We don't really have too much time to swap weapons in between games there. Just a few seconds there. It's not that much, but it's better than nothing. In the Splatoon 1 days, when Splatoon 1 was brand new, you couldn't swap gear or weapons in between matches. The only way you could do that was to completely leave the game, change things, and then just start a whole new session at that point. It was really annoying. So, to have this right out of the gate in Splatoon 2 was a huge thing. It's something that should have been there from the beginning of Splatoon 1, but at least it did get updated into the game later. And with Splatoon 2, it was just here in the beginning, which is really good. So, that is a huge thing to me, because I don't want to... Oh, no. I don't want to die. That's another thing. I say as I die. I don't want to leave a game just to change out my weapon, is what I was trying to say there. It's kind of hard to focus on commentary and also living at the same time. I really don't like how we have an ink brush in the base. These things are super quick. So this guy is taking advantage of that fast run speed using this brush. I don't like this. I need to trap him. That's kind of what I need to do right now. If I can just get a little bit more, I'm going to jump back to the base before I get killed from the ink storm. That's a little sketchy. Doing this is a good idea because I can get as many people locked on with 10 missiles. And that was a really good play because I killed the brush. The brush was the biggest problem early on. He was in our base for almost a full minute. There's a lot of areas we got to clean up because of him. But with a full group of 4, it's not really that bad. It won't take too long. So there we go. We're all good now. We got a couple beacons. Looks like that is our team's set of beacons, so that's really helpful. Beacons are a nice thing to have on the map, so some guns have this as their bomb type instead, which are completely useless as attacking objects, but these are really good things for just jumping over quickly to. Your whole team is able to use these beacons, so that really does help. I'm going to just walk onto these two guys here in the corner. They're both very close, and it's the brush again, so that was a good idea. I didn't realize one of them was the brush we lopped onto, but I'm very glad it was now looking after all that. Oh, there's a sniper up there. It's the same sniper from last time, too. It's the Neku guy. This guy's really good with that scope weapon. I'm not the best at chargers. I never really play them because they are very hard to master, in my opinion. So it's just not really a gun type for me. I'm never really the best with sniper-based weapons in general for shooters. And Splatoon is definitely in that list of I'm not good with this weapon kind of category. I gotta be careful here because I don't want to get splattered right now. This is a bad spot to be in. That roller we want to take care of as well, but he's getting pushed back, so we can kind of work with this. I believe that's a carbon roller. Yeah, it's definitely a carbon, so he's a fast boy. Carbon rollers are the fastest type of rollers, but they're a little bit weaker to compensate for this. Let's go ahead and throw out more of our 10 missiles here. Try to rack up as many points as we can here at the ending because we are getting close to the end of the game. We want to have as many points going into that tally screen. And if they're in danger, this is a really good push. Want to keep it up. Just keep on inking things. Gonna go ahead, just fill up to get a bomb ready. And that is game. They're in danger, so that means we win. That was 4 wins in a row. I'm kind of surprised we got 4 in a row. That is insane. That doesn't look like they were in danger. That's a lot of their ink on the map. But I guess the game says otherwise because that was a 30% lead. Good job, guys. I didn't think we had that big of a lead, but we take those. So, one thing to mention is that you see our levels. We all have pretty normal levels, but then some people may have a star next to their names. Well, that's because the leveling system in this game, it has 2 sets of levels. You have your standard 1 to 99. And then when you hit 99, you roll back over to level 1, but you get a star next to your profile now. That means you prestige, so you start over from the beginning and you still earn experience. That way, you can still get stuff from the game in general. You can still get more experience to brag about your skill level in Splatoon, which is a nice little thing that they do have. But that is everything we want to go ahead and cover in today's video. So that was Turf War, a very fun and introductory game type here in Splatoon 2. So now that we covered our first game type here in the Splatoon 2 multiplayer modes, we're going to go ahead and end things here. Next time on Let's Play Splatoon 2, we're going to start looking at one of the many ranked battle modes here in Splatoon 2, Splat Zones. I'll see you guys next time.